I mean, you can't write this stuff. You literally cannot write this stuff. If I put this in a script for a B movie, the producers would kick me out of the office. They'd say, Ethan, come on, nobody is this stupid. Nobody walks into a rake this hard on purpose. But here we are, December 16th, 2025. And I want you to really understand the level of incompetence we are watching right now. It's staggering. It is Olympic-level incompetence. Look, we've been tracking this Judiciary Committee mess for a while, right? Jim Jordan, the gavel, the yelling, the sleeves rolled up, we know the drill. And the plan, the grand master plan, was supposed to be tomorrow, December 17th. That was the day, the big show. Drag Jack Smith in there, lock the doors, turn off the cameras, and browbeat the guy for 8 hours, leaking the bits they like, burying the bits they don't. Standard operating procedure. It was a layup, a political slam dunk. But then, oh man, then they got greedy. See, here's the thing about trying to play 4D chess when you can barely handle checkers. You forget the rules. You forget that when you subpoena the prosecutor, when you drag him in to answer for his crimes, you make his evidence relevant. And that is exactly where the trap snapped shut. Because while Jordan was busy pre-writing his press releases, the Democrats, Jamie Raskin and his crew, they were sitting there just waiting. And 96 hours ago, boom, they pulled the pin. They turned around and said, okay, you want Jack Smith? You want to grill him on the Mar-a-Lago case? Fine, but you can't question him about a report that you're hiding from the public. And suddenly, everyone is looking at Volume 2.
Remember Volume 2, the secret report, the one Judge Cannon suppressed back in January? The one AG Bondi, our newly minted Attorney General, desperately wants to keep buried in the basement? Yeah, that one. The one that actually has the receipts, the obstruction, the willful retention, the stuff that never made it to a jury because they killed the case first. Now, because Jim Jordan insisted on this deposition, because he just had to have his moment, the Democrats have the legal hook to demand that report be released. It's the Streisand effect on steroids. The GOP is terrified. You can smell it. You can see it in the frantic scrambling. They subpoenaed the one guy who can destroy their narrative, and they gave the other side the perfect excuse to unseal the evidence. They're holding a grenade. They pulled the pin, and now they're looking at us like, why is this ticking? It's not just a backfire, it's a total strategic implosion. And honestly, it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. So buckle up, because tomorrow isn't going to be the grilling Jim Jordan wanted. It's going to be a hostage negotiation, and the hostage is the truth. All right, let's cut the music. Let's turn up the house lights. I want to get granular here, because if you just read the headlines, you miss the actual mechanism of the trap. You miss the beautiful, twisted logic of what is happening. We need to talk about Volume 2. Now, most people think there's just the Jack Smith report, one big book, but that's not true. There are two. Volume 1 covered January 6th, we know about that. But Volume 2, that is the ghost story. That is the one that keeps them up at night. Volume 2 is the specific, detailed, evidentiary roadmap of the Mar-a-Lago documents case. And here is where the timeline, the actual receipts, becomes devastating. Go back to January 2025, 11 months ago. Judge Aileen Cannon, remember her? She issues an order suppressing Volume 2. Why? What was the legal excuse? She said it was to protect the due process rights of the co-defendants, Walt Nada, Carlos de Oliveira, the guys moving the boxes, right? The argument was, we can't release this report because these guys still have to face a trial. Okay, fine, standard legal procedure. But here is the kicker. Here is the fact that Jim Jordan is praying you forget. Those cases are gone. Earlier this year, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, the DOJ dismissed those charges. Gone. Poof. Nada walked. De Oliveira walked. So, if there are no defendants and there is no trial, who are we protecting? That is the question Democrats asked in that letter to Bondi on December 12th.
I want to read you the specific language because it is surgical. They didn't just ask nicely. They wrote that the suppression of this volume now has, quote, absolutely no justification. They are calling the bluff. They are saying the legal shield is gone. The only thing left is a political shield. And this brings us to the subpoena itself. Jim Jordan wants to sit Jack Smith down tomorrow, December 17th, and ask him, why did you pursue this case? Why was it so aggressive? Was it political? Do you see the problem yet? To answer that question, to answer it truthfully, Jack Smith has to point to the evidence. He has to say, Representative Jordan, I pursued the case because on page 45 of Volume 2, we found proof that, stop. You can't do that. You cannot have that conversation if Volume 2 is sealed. This is the forensic trap. By subpoenaing Smith to testify about the conduct of the investigation, the GOP has made the basis of the investigation legally relevant to Congress. You cannot question the prosecutor about his homework while hiding the homework. It violates the basic concept of oversight.
And look at the panic from the last 96 hours. The Democrats filed an amicus brief. They are literally in court right now arguing this. Their argument is simple. The executive branch, that's Bondi and Trump, waived their privilege the moment the legislative branch, that's Jordan, demanded testimony. If Smith speaks, the report speaks. And let's be real about what's in there. We aren't talking about unpaid parking tickets. We are talking about the raw evidentiary roadmap. We are talking about witness interviews that contradict the public narrative. We are talking about these specific reasons why career prosecutors thought this was the most clear-cut obstruction case in American history. Jim Jordan thought he was summoning a punching bag. Instead, he summoned a witness who is legally bound to tell the truth about a document that proves Jordan is lying. It is, purely as a piece of legal maneuvering, it is breathtaking. They wanted a show trial. They wanted a soundbite. But by forcing the issue, by demanding Smith show up tomorrow, they have inadvertently created the single strongest legal argument for transparency we have seen in 2 years. They handed the Democrats the crowbar, and now they're watching them pry the crate open. But let's zoom out. We have to zoom out, because if you think this is just about Jim Jordan having a bad week, if you think this is just a clumsy mistake by a few overeager staffers, you are missing the forest for the trees. This isn't an accident. It is a methodology. We need to talk about the architecture of the cover-up, because what we are seeing, this desperate clawing attempt to suppress a document while simultaneously controlling the narrative, is the exact same playbook we have seen for nearly a decade. It is the defining political strategy of the modern era. I call it the preemptive burial, and to understand it, you don't look at 2025. You have to go back. You have to go back to the spring of 2019.
Do you remember? I know it feels like a lifetime ago, but remember the Mueller report? What happened there? It was the exact same mechanic. Robert Mueller spends 2 years investigating. He produces a report, a damning report, a report that outlined 10 specific instances of obstruction of justice. 10! But did the American people get to see that report on day one? No. Instead, we got a 4-page letter. A summary written by Bill Barr, and that summary said essentially, nothing to see here, total exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. He released the lie 3 weeks before he released the truth, and by the time the actual report came out, by the time we could read the damning details, it didn't matter. The cement had dried, the narrative was set, the no collusion banner was already flying. They knew that if they could control the first impression, the facts wouldn't matter later. That was the beta test. That was where they learned that reality is negotiable if you are the one holding the Sharpie, and they have run that play every single time since. Look at the Ukraine scandal, the perfect call. Remember that? What did they do with the transcript of that call? Did they file it normally? No, they hid it. They moved it to a code word level server meant for national security secrets, not because the call contained nuclear codes, but because it contained political embarrassment. They weaponized the classification system itself. They used the machinery of the state, the very tools designed to keep us safe, to keep themselves safe from us. And that is what is happening with Volume 2. It's the same pattern. They use due process as a shield for the powerful, while running roughshod over the due process of everyone else. When it's a regular person, lock them up. When it's one of them, oh, we can't release the report, we have to protect the privacy of the co-defendants.
It is cynical, it is corrosive, and it relies on one specific thing: your exhaustion. They are banking on the fact that you won't read the footnotes. They are banking on the fact that you are too busy, too tired, or too burnt out to remember what happened 6 months ago, let alone 6 years ago. They treat the truth like it's a perishable good, like if they can just keep it in the fridge long enough, it will rot and they can throw it out. And look at the asymmetry here. This is what drives me crazy. This is the part that should make you furious. The Democrats, and I love them, but they do this. They play by the rules of a courtroom. They file briefs, they write letters, they cite statutes, they appeal to norms. They act like if they just present the right argument, the system will self-correct. The GOP, they don't play by courtroom rules. They play by information warfare rules. They know that a closed-door deposition is a weapon. Why do they love closed doors? Why did they want Jack Smith in private? Because behind closed doors, there is no truth. There is only the leak. They can walk out of that room and say Jack Smith admitted he cried and begged for forgiveness, and until the transcript comes out 3 weeks later, that is the news. They are trying to do to Jack Smith exactly what they did to Mueller. They want to bury the report, create a false summary, and scream victory before anyone can check the receipts. But this time, the machine jammed because they forgot that you can't run the Bill Barr playbook without Bill Barr. They forgot that you can't hide the document when you've already fired the defendants. They got sloppy. They got so used to the silence, so used to the lack of consequences, that they stopped checking the locks on the doors. This isn't just about a document in a box in Florida. This is about a decade-long project to erase memory, to make sure that history is written not by the victors, but by the liars. They aren't afraid of justice. They're afraid of the record. They are afraid that one day the ink will dry and the world will see exactly who they were. And that is why they fight so hard to keep the lights off. Because they know that cockroaches cannot survive in the sun. Now, I want to stop. I want to stop laughing at their incompetence. I want to stop analyzing the legal chess moves, because if we stay in the weeds of who filed what brief, we risk missing the terrifying reality of what comes next. We need to talk about the future. Not next week, not the 2026 midterms. I'm talking about the structural future of this country. Because if this works, if they somehow wiggle out of this trap, if Jim Jordan manages to hold this deposition, spin the narrative, and keep Volume 2 locked in a vault forever, then we have crossed a line that we cannot uncross. We are staring at the death of public truth. Think about what that means. For 200 years, the basic compact of this republic has been simple. The government acts, and eventually, the people see the receipts. Maybe it takes years. Maybe it takes a FOIA request. Maybe it takes a brave whistleblower. But the assumption, the bedrock assumption, is that the record belongs to us. But look at what they are building here. They are building a system where the truth is no longer a matter of public record. It is a proprietary asset of the ruling party. If they succeed in burying Volume 2, even after the cases are dropped, even after the legal justification is gone, they establish a new precedent. They establish the rule that political embarrassment is a state secret. And once you establish that, the game is over. Imagine a world 5 years from now, a world where this precedent is cemented. A scandal happens. Maybe it's corruption. Maybe it's a war crime. Maybe it's a massive failure of infrastructure that kills thousands. Congress investigates? No. They hold a closed-door show trial. The report is written, yes, but it is immediately sealed to protect the process. The public sees nothing. You see only what they want you to see. You see the press release. You see the doctored summary. You see the lie, and you have no way to prove otherwise. That is not a democracy. That is a management system. That is a population being managed, not governed.
We are looking at the privatization of history. They are trying to turn the Department of Justice into a private law firm for the president and the House Judiciary Committee into a PR agency for the party. And the scariest part isn't the malice, it's the silence. It's the fact that half the country might look at this and shrug. Well, that's just politics. No. Politics is debating tax rates. Politics is arguing about zoning laws, hiding evidence of crimes against the state, hiding the roadmap of how a president compromised national security. That isn't politics. That is erasure. And that is why tomorrow matters. That is why December 17th, 2025 matters. It's not about Jack Smith. Jack Smith is a big boy. He can take care of himself. He's a prosecutor. He's used to being yelled at. It is about the document. It is about the physical proof of what happened. If we lose the ability to agree on a shared set of facts, we lose the ability to self-correct. A democracy that cannot see its own mistakes is a democracy that is walking blindfolded off a cliff. And right now, they are trying to tighten the blindfold. So when you see the news tomorrow, when you see the leaks coming out of that closed room, when you see Jim Jordan screaming about bias and partisanship, do not get distracted by the noise. Ask the one question that matters. Where is the report? If they are so confident in their innocence, show us the file. If it's a witch hunt, show us the spell book. If there is nothing to hide, stop hiding it. Because until they do, we have to assume the worst. We have to assume that what is in Volume 2 is so damning, so undeniable, that they are willing to break the very concept of congressional oversight just so you can't read it. They are afraid of you. Never forget that. They are hiding this from you, and the only way they win, the only way the darkness wins, is if we stop asking for the light. So keep asking, keep pushing, because the truth is still there. It's sitting in a box, waiting for someone to turn the key, and we cannot let them throw away the key.